What's up, college sports fans? I'm Stuckey.
I'm Colin Wilson.
I'm Mike Calabrese.
I'm Maria Marino.
I'm Charlie DiSturco, and we're excited that the Big Bets on Campus brand is launching its very own YouTube channel.
You'll be able to find every episode of the BBOC podcast, live shows, and other college sports content on this new channel.
Not only will the channel be dedicated to betting on college sports, but you'll also be able to find exclusive interviews with former college athletes,
college football power rankings,
and updates on other topics like the brand new College Football 25 video game series and the ins and outs of the recruiting trail all the way down to the transfer portal.
Whether you're into college football,
college basketball,
college baseball, or any of the college sports,
we are the home for college sports, and BBOC is the channel for you.
Make sure you subscribe so you don't miss any of the action. I'll see you there.
Welcome to Running Hot, Action Network's motorsports betting podcast. I'm your host, Nick Giffen, predictive analyst here at Action Network. And joining me, as always, my co-host, Stephen Young of Roto Grinders, better known as Stevie TPFL. And this week, we're talking bets for the Southern 500 at Darlington Raceway here on Running Hot. Last weekend at Daytona, Harrison Burton took his first career win in a race that, Stevie, you and I predicted would be pretty chaotic, and it certainly was, especially in that final stage, although we did have an early big on it as well. Harrison Burton getting the push from young Parker Retzlaff to the win, pushing him past Kyle Busch, who finished second. Christopher Bell ended up finishing third. That means Harrison Burton locks himself into the playoffs, moves the playoff cut line up one place. So now Chris Buescher is on the playoff bubble with Bubba Wallace behind him by 21 points for the final spot on points. That is if we don't get another new winner this weekend at Darlington. But Stevie, thoughts on Daytona? Thoughts on Harrison Burton being in the playoffs? Thoughts on all of it?
Daytona was wild. I was there. It was a lot of fun. The racing was wild. I mean, Daytona 2 is wild every year. Don't go away. I mean, let's just keep it forever. I would rather it be the cutoff race and be done last weekend and go to Darlington for a playoff race. But hey, it is what it is. I will say I'm happy for Harrison Burton. I feel like Harrison Burton is a good kid, and he's done a lot of right things, and he's never really complained publicly about his struggles and his frustrations. And I mean, he won, and he won by winning the race against one of the best ever. Kyle Busch is one of the best ever. I mean, whether you like him or not, Kyle has done a lot in the sport. And all these people giving Parker Retzlaff a hard time about pushing Harrison Burton, get out of here. I mean,
yeah,
this kid's in his second NASCAR Cup race, and the best way for him to win that race potentially would have been to push Harrison Burton. And listen, just stop. This kid is young, he's talented, and he did what he thought was best to win the race. Chevy, Toyota, Ford, all that stuff goes out of the window on a green-white checkered at Daytona. Yeah, you could help, you could pit together, you could do all that stuff, but stop giving this kid a hard time. It's ridiculous. Yeah, you can make an argument for at least having to be top 30 in points to make the playoffs or whatever, but that's not where the rules are right now. Harrison Burton's in the playoffs. Bubba Wallace shouldn't be in this position. I mean, he should have won multiple races this year. Ross Chastain should not be in this position. Hey, you got to perform throughout the year how this system is set up. So I think it's going to be a great race at Darlington this weekend, and the playoff situation is just going to add fuel to the fire.
I agree with you, and I agree on all of it. Harrison Burton deserves that playoff spot. Those are the rules. And Bubba Wallace, Ross Chastain, if you're not top 12 or so in points and you haven't gotten a win, it's hard to argue you deserve a playoff spot anyway. So I'm right there with you. Look, the reason we did away with the top 30 rule was because Corey LaJoie 2 years ago almost won Atlanta late in the regular season. And had he won, he would not have been playoff eligible. And people hated that. They wanted him to be playoff eligible. And now all of a sudden we do away with the rule. And now people are frustrated that Harrison Burton's playoff eligible. It doesn't make sense. So you can't have it both ways. I, for one, think the system's totally fine. I don't think it's broken at all. If you beat 35, 36, 39 other drivers in this case, sure, you deserve a playoff spot. Even if it comes at the expense of, the 13th or 14th place guy. Those guys aren't likely winning the championship anyway. So great race at Daytona, a lot of excitement, a lot of fun. But this weekend, we're on to another crown jewel, the Southern 500 at Darlington Raceway. Now, Stevie, we did have another race at Darlington earlier this year, so certainly we'll be able to lean on that for some data. Brad Keselowski came home the winner in that one. Tyler Reddick led the most laps in that one and took a stage win as well. So, Stevie, let's talk racing at Darlington. We know high tire wear, one and about a third mile, egg-shaped oval, steeply banked. Let's just talk about Darlington. What you got for this weekend?
One of the toughest tracks on the circuit. I mean, two completely opposite corners. I say corners. Both sides of the racetrack, completely opposite. Straightaways, very different. And high tire wear is, I mean, Darlington is high tire wear. Like, it's the track that we use for definition of high tire wear, where, I mean, you can run 5 laps and pit and come out 0.2 faster than everybody else on the field. So, like, tires matter a ton. Qualifying matters. We talk about it all the time when we go to Darlington. The number one pit stall, biggest advantage in NASCAR is Darlington number one pit stall. It is literally like 10 feet from where you leave your pit box, and you're going to gain positions or hold positions all night if you're making good pit stops from the number one pit stall. So that's huge. But tire wear and excitement. I mean, this is the longest race we've had in a while. I mean, this is a 500-mile race. It's going to be very challenging for these drivers. It starts at the daytime, it goes to nighttime, and it changes all race long. So you got to keep up with the car, even if you are leading the race. So, I mean, it's challenging on drivers, and it's challenging on crew chiefs, and it's challenging on pit crews, because there's just so much going on here where everybody has to do their job right to win this race. And that's why it's a crown jewel.
Absolutely. 500 miles, like you said, it goes from late afternoon, evening, twilight, evening, night. It's got it all. And just by the fact that it's such a challenging track to drive as well, we often see a lot of incidents. We see occasionally an engine failure too. We've seen a few of those from especially Toyota this year. So it can be a race of attrition. Last year, only 22 cars ended up finishing on the lead lap. So, just with 500 miles there, that's the way this thing goes. I remember as well in 2022, the year Eric Jones won, only 18 cars ended up on the lead lap. We saw Martin Truex Jr. have, I think it was an engine failure or power steering failure. Kyle Busch had a failure as well in his Toyota, a couple accidents. So it's a long race. It's a tricky race. It's a challenging track. And hey, there's one more potential playoff opening if we can get a new winner. Stevie, we talked a little bit about that playoff picture with Chris Buescher. Kind of safe there. Or I shouldn't say safe. On the good side of the cutoff line is what I mean there. 21 points ahead of Bubba Wallace. Ross Chastain is another 3 points behind Bubba Wallace. 6 points behind Bubba Wallace. And right ahead of Chris Buescher, Ty Gibbs is only 18 points ahead of him. But that means in terms of points back to Bubba Wallace, Ty Gibbs is 39 points ahead of Bubba Wallace. So he should feel pretty good unless we get a new winner, which, going to be difficult, but it's not out of the realm of possibility we get a new winner. There's some good drivers here. So what do you think playoff implications are for this race?
I think if you're below the cut line, you're going to win. I think even Chris Buescher is very focused on winning this race. I think Ty Gibbs, Martin Truex Jr. are focused on stage points and, finishing inside the top 10. So, listen, Toyota was really fast when we were here earlier this year. Tyler Reddick was the class of the field. He had some issues late in that race, but I think Bubba's going to bring it, and I think Ross Chastain's going to bring it. This is a really good track for Ross Chastain, and it's a really good track for Toyota. So, I mean, we have Kyle Busch down here. Chase Briscoe was really fast here earlier this year. Josh Berry was really fast here earlier this year. Ricky Stenhouse Jr. is very good at, Darlington. Eric Jones, where he struggled earlier this year, he's really good at Darlington in the past. So, I think you got to win. Like, if you're Bubba Wallace, you're Chris Buescher, you're Ross Chastain, you're like, hey, I got to win this race.
Kyle Busch.
Yeah, Kyle Busch. I mean, you're like, hey, the only way I'm making the playoffs is winning this race. And, it was really cool to hear, John Wood talk about how winning last weekend at Daytona for Wood Brothers was like a $2.5-3 million like bonus for them because of how much it moved them up in the standings. So like it's huge. Like it's nothing to like think twice about. Like these cars have probably been getting prepped for weeks getting ready for this race. This isn't a typical race. This is we have to win this race type of race.
Absolutely. I agree with you there. And I'm sure we'll be using some playoff implications in our bets. So let's get to those. As always, we're going to take you for a lap around Darlington. 4 turns, 1 pick from Stevie, 1 pick from me per turn before we drive into victory lane. So we're throwing the green flag on the Southern 500 and diving into turn 1. Okay, turn 1, Stevie. You talked about this guy. He's one of these outside looking in guys. As far as the playoff picture, you like him for a top 10 finish. Who you got?
Yeah, anytime we go to a racetrack for the second time with the next gen car over the last couple of years, like it's a really good comp. It's just kind of looking back at the race earlier this year. So Josh Berry, top 10 is my pick here at plus 210. Josh Berry had a lot of speed when we came here earlier this year, and he was somebody that really performed well towards the end of that race, and he moved up through the field and ended up finishing third in that race, and it wasn't like a luck third place finish. Like he had speed. So again, we give so much credit to Rodney Childress and how wonderful of a crew chief he is. I think these are the types of tracks that Josh Berry is going to continue to excel on throughout his career, however long his career becomes, because he grew up on these racetracks where you had to manage your tires and manage your stuff. And we've seen him perform really well on these high tire wear tracks this year. And I think that this is going to be no different. I think he has the upside to potentially win this race if you want to take like a long shot on him even winning this race. But I think if you want a safer, nice value bet, you bet his top 10 here at plus 210.
Yeah, absolutely. You can't argue with Josh Berry, especially his first race performance here. You mentioned he finished third. I think he was like 11th or something in green flag speed, but when you track position, adjust that speed, knowing the fact that he started 33rd, he ends up, I think, 6th in my track position adjusted flags metric. So plus 210 for a top 10 finish. Really like that. Speaking of top 10 finishes, Stevie, my turn 1 pick is something that also happened in the first Darlington race this year. I'm going to take under 3.5 Chevys to finish inside the top 10. You can get that at plus 130. Earlier this year, not only did under 3.5 hit, the under 2.5 would have hit. There's only 2 Chevys finished inside the top 10, none inside the top 5. William Byron finished 6th. Alex Bowman finished 8th. And then the next best Chevy was Ross Chastain 11th, Chase Elliott 12th. And when I look at my power ratings for this race and just, my model, I only have 2 Chevys inside the top 10 in terms of outright win probability. I have Alex Bowman and Chase Elliott just outside in 11th and 12th. So you could potentially swap them with maybe like a Ryan Blaney, who I have as 10th. But either way, that's still under 3.5 that we're talking about in terms of my top 10, in terms of win probability and top 10 probability and things like that. This is a great track for Toyota. Joe Gibbs Racing, 2311. We saw a strong Ford performance earlier this year. You mentioned from Josh Berry finishing 3rd, Chase Briscoe finishing 5th. Obviously, Brad Keselowski won the race here. He's going to be strong. We had top 10 finishes from Justin Haley and Michael McDowell, both in Fords. Now, maybe they won't, but Noah Gragson, Todd Gilliland, all lurking there. Noah Gregson's fantastic at this track. Todd Gilliland was 12th and had a average running position around 12th earlier this year. So a lot of Fords, a lot of Toyotas are really good here. So this is not a lock for Chevy, especially considering I have less than 3.5. I have less than 2.5 inside my personal top 10.
Yeah, so I was looking, I was quickly trying to pull up the data and look. Larson's the favorite in my model. He always seems to have an issue though. He's like the unluckiest person at Darlington. He's always one of the fastest cars and then always has an issue. But I really like William Byron. And then, like you said, I kind of have some of these other guys right outside the top 10. I think Chastain is showing some value in my model this week. And it's I definitely want to get behind some Ross Chastain, but yeah, I mean, I don't hate this. Ford, I think, is going to be fast. Toyota is going to be really fast. So, you're getting this at plus money too. So I think it's worth the gamble.
Yeah, exactly. It not to discount Chevy as a whole, right? Like I do like Chastain. I do like Kyle Busch here. It's just that I like those Toyotas, especially a whole lot more, and other guys like Brad Keselowski. So it's just one of those spots where I like the plus money on the under 10.5. So turn one, Stevie taking Josh Berry for a top 10 finish plus 210. And I'm on under 3.5 Chevys to finish inside the top 10. You know, it'd be great if Josh Berry is one of those top 10 finishers, Stevie, because that takes away a spot from those Chevys. So kind of a correlated turn one there for us. So let's push each other into turn two. All right, turn two, Stevie. Couple outrights here. One of them is a bubble boy in the playoffs. Who you got?
Yeah, I'm going to go to Ty Gibbs, 18-1 to win this race. I tweeted this out on Monday or Tuesday. I think he's going to win this race. And, I mean, he's been really, really fast on intermediate tracks all year. And he's been really solid at these high tire wear tracks, which you kind of don't expect that from him. And, I mean, he's really good at qualifying. And if we go back and we look at everything for Ty Gibbs earlier this year, I mean, he had the second highest driver rating. He started fourth. He ran inside the top five almost the entire race. He finished second. And he had opportunity to potentially win that race. So if his pit crew can show up, I think that the speed will be there. And I think that Ty Gibbs has a ton of upside. And we're getting a guy that was, I mean, he was second in green flag speed and like third in overall speed earlier this year. And we're getting him at 18-1 because there's so many good people at Darlington in front of him. But I think that, you know, this is one of those ones that just show a ton of value in my model this week.
All right, so we agree a lot on this show. I'm going to push back just a little bit on Ty Gibbs.
Bring it.
Just a little. Because I actually do have value at 18-1. I have plus 1685 as fair value. But the only reason I'm not is because of this playoff deal. He just needs to not have problems. Maybe grab some stage points, but if he has a clean race, all he needs to do is stay ahead of Chris Buescher in points. The worst thing he could possibly do is overdrive, get the Darlington stripes, and ruin his own race. Now, if there's a mechanical, if there's a pit crew penalty, if there's a wreck in front of him that he can't avoid, those are all things that are out of his control. But what he can control is not overdoing it. Drive what the car is going to give you, and there's certainly a chance the car can just be easy to drive as a race-winning car. That's why I have him plus 1685 in my model. But when push comes to shove, if he has to make that bump and run for the win, or if there's a tight battle with another driver, probably just let him go, right? That's my thinking here with Ty Gibbs. So I do have model value on this, but when you incorporate maybe model error plus that little bit of a playoff picture here, I'm just going to push back a little bit on that. I'm not on it, but I totally get why you like the 18-1.
Can I rebuttal your rebuttal?
Absolutely. This is what we're here for.
Ty Gibbs has a chance to move somebody to win this race. He's moving that person. Have you not seen this kid?
I have seen this kid. But would he do it at the expense of a playoff spot, right? If he moves them and they accidentally hit him as he's passing them.
Listen, I hear your thoughts. And again, I bet this basically based on the speed and like the value that we're getting. But yeah, I mean, that would be the biggest concern about Ty Gibbs, Chris Buescher, these guys. But I mean, again, like, how do you make sure you get in the playoffs? Well, you win the race.
Absolutely. So, you know, I'm not betting it myself. I would maybe say I lean it. And for my turn two pick, I'm also going to lean. So this is not a bet I've made. Martin Truex Jr. at 14-1 to win this race. And the reason I'm leaning this one is because I have Martin Truex Jr. at 6. If I want to get to the decimal, 6.885% to win this race, which is high plus 1,300. So 14-1, extremely thin value. But look, it's Martin Truex Jr. at Darlington. Martin Truex Jr., one of the best Darlington drivers of all time. He's just a guy that can get it done at Darlington. Tons of wins here, tons of top fives here. Obviously won in 2021 at Darlington, which is his most recent Darlington win, but he's had other strong performances at Darlington as of late. So just a guy that when you see him at 14-1 at a track that he's really good at, it's hard to pass up. But at the same time, he's had some other tracks that he's been really good at. Let's think about Richmond, where he just kind of ends up as like a 3rd to 5th place car. So that's why I'm not quite there yet on Martin Truex Jr. I'm curious your thoughts on him.
Yeah, I mean, I'm showing a little bit of value here on Truex to win this race. My biggest concern would be basically the same thing that you said about Gibbs. Like, Martin Truex Jr. really doesn't need to push it here. He just needs to finish. He needs to finish 18th or better with no stage points, I think is what I read. Good old Bob, tweeted out. So I'm pretty sure that's all he needs here. So, I mean, there's a chance that like Truex is locked in by the final stage, even with a new winner. So I think like that's when he could potentially be more aggressive. But listen, this is his last time potentially running the Crown Jewel race. He's going to be fast. He's always fast here, like you said. So I have no issues betting on the speed. I mean, at some points, like we're getting like an overreaction from the books saying, hey, he's going to play it safe here at 14-1. And, that's just in our mind. We got to take advantage of that.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, and it's just like Martin Truex Jr. Look at this. Since 2020, he has led over 140 laps in 3 of the 8 races here at Darlington. He's led 48 laps at another and 28 laps at another. I mean, the guy just dominates Darlington. So even though he only has 1 victory in that time frame, he probably deserved 2, maybe even 3, just based off how strong his car has been. So Martin Truex Jr. lean 14-1, Ty Gibbs for Stevie 18-1 is our turn 2 picks. So that's half a lap at Darlington. Before we get into turn 3, I want to remind you all Running Hot is presented by BetMGM. Use bonus code ACTION when signing up to get up to $1,500 back in bonus bets if your first bet does not win. For new users in Arizona, Colorado, Illinois, Indiana, Iowa, Kentucky, Louisiana, Maryland, Massachusetts, Michigan, New Jersey, North Carolina, Ohio, Pennsylvania, Tennessee, Virginia, West Virginia, and Wyoming. Terms and conditions apply. Must be 21 or older. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. All right, 2 turns down, 2 turns to go. We're going to head to the other end of the egg-shaped track and dive into turn 3. Turn 3, Stevie, another bubble boy, another borderline playoff guy, Chris Buescher. What do you got for him here?
Yeah, I really wanted to bet his outright, and I might like eventually add it before practice and qualifying. But I bet his top 5 here at plus 275. He's really good at high tire wear tracks. I think that obviously having one of the best as his teammate and owner is a huge plus. Obviously, Brad Keselowski won this race earlier this year, and Buescher, I mean, he had speed in that race, but I wouldn't be shocked if like Buescher is in the chassis that Keselowski won this race with earlier this year, because the focus for RFK is obviously Chris Buescher, and where he's at in points, I mean, he's safe, but he's not. So, I mean, I think that we're going to see him, definitely want to try to run top 5. I think he's going to have the speed to run top 5. And, we were talking about how important like pit crews are. His pit crew just continues to knock it out of the park. They've been fantastic all season. He's been gaining pit road or positions on pit road all season. We're going to see a lot of stops, a lot of pit stops this weekend. So good pit crews matter. Buescher has a great pit crew, and I think this is a great spot to take advantage of it.
Speaking of great pit crews, I'm just going to go right into my turn 3 pick here. Christopher Bell, top 5 finish, plus 220. We know Christopher Bell has one of the best pit crews. We talked about, how he got that Ty Gibbs pit crew from last year. That was super fast, and it's stuck with him this year. Once the playoffs came around last year, and they remain on the 20 car. Christopher Bell has struggled a little bit at Darlington in the Cup Series, but it's not like he's been bad. It's just not been one of his best tracks. But, if we look back, for example, all the way, to when he was running in the Xfinity Series or in the Truck Series, he always was really good at these high tire wear tracks of Homestead and Darlington, had some strong performances even in the Xfinity Series and the Truck Series. And he's been totally fine here at Darlington, right? He has finishes that are borderline top 5. He has a top 5 back in 2022. It's just, it hasn't quite been a slam dunk track for him, but he's getting better. He's improving, and he's had a phenomenal season. He's pretty much one of the top handful of favorites at every single track we go to. And now we're getting them discounted, at least in like terms of outright odds, right? Like 16-1. But I don't want to go that aggressive on him in terms of, which I do have value on his outright at 16-1. But just given his track history, I want to play it a little bit safer and go with that top 5 finish at plus 220. So curious your thoughts on C-Bell here.
Yeah, I mean, if we look at him in the next gen car, I mean, he's had top 5 speed here multiple times. And I mean, if we look at just the high speed intermediates this season in general, like he's a top 5 car. So a lot of speed at Charlotte where, you know, it's not the best comp, but it tells us that like he has the speed capability. Kansas, he was really fast. They kind of need some momentum. I felt like they were going through a really good stretch there, and I feel like the momentum has kind of dropped off a little bit. I really wanted to find a way to bet C-Bell and Tyler Reddick. So, I mean, I might take this C-Bell top 10 or top 5 here. I really want to find a way to bet Tyler Reddick. I think that, gosh, he's going to be so good this weekend, but just not finding much value. Yeah,
exactly. Now, I did hit Tyler Reddick plus 750 right at the open for BetMGM, but that moved pretty quickly. That was the way I played Tyler Reddick. But at this point, you're right.
Yeah, just saying, all
the value now is gone. So we have a pair of top 5s. Chris Buescher top 5 plus 275 for Stevie, and Chris Bell top 5 plus 220 for me. That means there's only one turn left, and that's turn 4. All right, final turn here, Stevie. Now, I did say under 3.5 Chevys in the top 10, but I'll allow this one because I have value on it too. What do you have?
Yeah, I have Alex Bowman for a top 10 here at plus 270. My model likes this one a lot, so this is more of a model bet than a CV bet. So sometimes I just bet these when they're showing really excellent value. I mean, himself has been fantastic on pit road this year. His crew has kind of been all over the place, which you kind of hope that they get better, and think he'd have better finishes overall if his pit crew wasn't struggling so much this year. But speed-wise, I mean, I have him in that like 9 to 12 range on high speed intermediates this year. He's been consistently good. He just hasn't had like race-winning speed. And betting his top 10, I don't necessarily need his race-winning speed. I like him on high tire wear tracks. Talk about him all the time on high tire wear tracks. And where he's at, he can be aggressive too. Finished 8th here in the earlier race this year in the spring, and I think he has top 10 upside this weekend.
Absolutely. Right there with you. I am on Alex Bowman top 10 plus 270 as well. That is an official bet for me. But also, I'm taking Alex Bowman to win this darn thing at 65-1. I have him right around 3% to win this. I'm a little bit high on him, I think, maybe, but I know our friend, Jim Sonis, he has him at 2.9% to win. So when a couple of us are showing model value on Alex Bowman, you're showing model value on Alex Bowman. I just got to go with it. I got to go with 65-1. And here's the thing about Alex Bowman. He's good at high tire wear tracks. If you look where his career wins have come, Chicagoland, that was a high tire wear track before we stopped racing there. Auto Club Speedway, high tire wear track. Richmond, high tire wear track. You getting the theme here, right? Like a lot of high tire wear wins for Bowman. Even Las Vegas is getting, medium high tire wear. He's won at Martinsville, which has some fall off. Dover can, if not necessarily have some fall off, like the line changes a lot there. So a little bit similar. Really only, and even at the Chicago street course, there was some fall off with the rain tires. So really, it's only Pocono that isn't like super high tire wear or medium-ish tire wear that Alex Bowman has won at. So he's been good at managing his tires and having results at this track type. So I'm going to go Alex Bowman to win 65-1 in addition to that top 10 bet.
Let's do it. Bring it on, Bowman.
I like it. So Alex Bowman's one of the Chevys we are rooting for this weekend. And so that is going to wrap our lap up around Darlington, but that means there's still one thing left to do, and we're going to drive into Victory Lane, and Stevie, it is another Chevy. So, I want these two to finish in the top 10, one of these two to win. What is it?
Yeah, we're going to William Byron as our Victory Lane pick this week at 12-1. Book's just kind of disrespecting William Byron, in my opinion. Like, we look at how good he has been at Darlington. And I mean, I have him up towards the top of the list. He has the highest driver rating at Darlington with the next gen car. He ranks first in speed. He's been top 5 in speed in every single race here with the next gen car. And we know what Hendrick likes to do in the summer. They like to test stuff. It's playoff time. William Byron's going to be in go mode this weekend. And like, we know how good his pit crew is. Like, everything just kind of lines up to jump on William Byron this week. And I mean, the books are telling us, they're pretty much saying, hey, here you go on a silver platter. So we're on William Byron to win this race.
Absolutely. Byron is 4th in my model, behind the big 3 of Hamlin, Reddick, and Larson, in whatever order you want to put those 3. I have William Byron 4th in my model. I bet him 11-1 earlier week, and now there's a 12-1 available. So I like that even better. But look, William Byron has a win at Darlington. William Byron was on his way to another win at Darlington, except Joey Logano punted him heading into the final lap for the lead. Not just passed him, just punted him, just straight up drove into his rear. It was a bump and run that turned into a little bit more than a bump and run. He ended up hitting the wall. William Byron has a win at Homestead, which is the best comparable track for Darlington, another kind of steeply banked, high tire wear track, true ovalish type shape. So this is a great track type for William Byron. I just can't get why he was 11 or 12-1. I'm definitely showing model value on it. Just the way he's raced this track and this track type has been so good. And earlier this year, of course, William Byron, he ran the 2nd highest percentage of laps inside the top 15. And I think he had something like the 3rd best average running position up there in speed. So he had a great showing earlier this year as well. I didn't quite get the finish. He had a 6th place finish, but he definitely had a top 5 car. So I love William Byron, I almost said Alex Bowman. William Byron at 12-1 as our victory lane pick. And that is going to do it for us. Thank you for listening to the Southern 500 episode of Running Hot, Action Network's Motorsports Betting Podcast. We'll be back this time next week as we talk bets for the Quaker State 400 at Atlanta Motor Speedway as we start the 2024 NASCAR playoffs. On behalf of my co-host, Stephen Young, thanks again for listening. We'll see you back here next week on Running Hot from Action Network.